Today is May 6th, 2014. You're listening to I Think You Think. We're your hosts. We carry no credentials worth noting. I'm Justin. This is
Sequoia.
And this is
Sick.
That is not your name.
I don't remember my name today.
So James is not feeling very well. So if he's James, it's your name, yes. But if he's not feeling very well, we'll deal with that. He will make us all sick. So, but we have a guest with us today, as you can probably see, hopefully in the video wherever I've decided to put her. I don't know at this point. There you go. Maybe make sure that she gets there. But we have Lori with us. Lori, hello.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Indeed. So
You
Lori,
can't even wave. You're like...
I can wave back.
Lori is the owner and editor of Still Standing magazine. It's an online magazine for those who are suffering from infertility, pregnancy, child loss. She's a former elementary school teacher. She's an author, a speaker, and most importantly, she's a mother and a wife. Her husband is a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps, and she's been married for 17 years. She is the parent of 3 boys, and she's had the privilege of raising one. Luke is his name, and the other 2 are waiting for her in heaven. So that's very beautiful notion that you have. I really like it.
Thanks. I do too.
So she's very credentialed, and we are not credentialed whatsoever.
Not so much. It's all. I majored in PR, so it's all in the spin. I promise.
But one of the biggest things about I Think You Think is we're a weekly topical podcast. Feel free, if you would like to take part, just like Lori is doing, either as a guest or in other capacities, feel free to email us.
Yeah.
You can check out our website, ithinkyouthink.com. And also, Lori, your website is stillstandingmag.com?
It is, and I'm happy to share and see if anybody would be interested as well.
Excellent. The music that you hear at the beginning is Alex and the Anders. So thank you, Tom. I have your names this time. Thank you, Alex, Blake, and Tucker. So sorry for not having those in previous podcasts. Also,
use their real names this time.
It is their real names this time.
Happy.
Yes. I didn't make them up. Also, StravaMax.com, the young lady that made all of our graphics, images, all those types of things. She makes jewelry over at StravaMax, so check it out. Like and share the podcast and the vidcast. I am under a deadline. I have to have it done by Friday this week because I did really badly this week, and I'm really sorry. Normally, we like to start with what's been going on in our lives, but we're going to go ahead and actually skip that and dive right into the talking with Lori. So, Lori, you have a lot going on for you. Author, you are the editor of this website, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to just kind of tell us a little bit about the website and what it's there for and what kind of your ideas are regarding those things.
Okay, great. Yeah, well, and you're right. We do have a lot going on. I think I sort of snickered at the lieutenant colonel part because, we are very much Marine family, and we are in the middle of a move. And so, again, forgive the background. It between a move and our magazine's second anniversary and all sorts of other fun stuff, it is busy. So all those things that you read, none of those are really happening. It's the daily life that's going on. But yeah, so Still Standing is I see this.
Oh no, that was I just.
Nope, you're good. Nope,
Okay, I apologize. Secret joke. Still Standing is actually. It's an online magazine. At some point, perhaps we'll get out to print, maybe quarterly. We're thinking about it, but it's an online magazine, and it really is. It's kind of a unique magazine. It's a unique publication. A couple of years ago, my first son passed away a few years ago. The day after he was born, I had some pretty rare labor complications, and we'd suffered through several years of infertility, lots of treatments, lots and lots of stuff. And so sort of when you battle infertility and then you finally get pregnant, you think that's it. Done. Great. Made it up. Baby's coming home. All is good. And that's not always the case. And in fact, it happens a lot more often than I I knew. I was oblivious. And so thankfully we live in an age where things like this happen, podcasts, videocasts, blogs, resources that I don't know what I would have done without. And so several women, like I did, blogged. I had started blogging. We were adopting from another country, and unfortunately the country closed, and that's sort of why we turned to IVF. But several women shared their hearts and shared their stories, and a lot of us all at the same kind of time frame, within several months' time, had lost their children. And so I don't think anybody's too surprised anymore when we find that we develop these relationships and these friendships and these bonds online. How many marriages do you know of that last a lot longer than those that you see when you meet in person, that happen online? So I was just thankful for those women. And a couple of years ago, one of the women that I met, Francesca Cox, air quotes, she kind of had an idea. She said, I'd like to do something bigger. And it had been a couple years after our losses as well. Time absolutely does not ever heal anything. And I'm not a big fan of that. Time heals everything, cliche. But I do think time gives perspective that a lot of people don't have when you're fresh in the middle of anything, whether it's grief from a death or a job or whatever. When you're just in the middle of something, you just don't have the luxury of the perspective of time, not necessarily time healing it. But we had, and she got a couple of gals together and said, I'd like to do this. I'd like to do this magazine. And I hadn't really planned to be part of it. Honestly, I didn't really.
That's a funny way of doing that, right?
It does. And I didn't necessarily feel that I had very much to offer because, to be truthful, we just sort of moved, and we'd moved not too earlier, but I grief, and especially with people who've lost their child, it's sensitive. And I didn't ever, I sort of said to Fran, I just have my voice, and who wants to read about that? And apparently people do. So, and again, probably for the same reasons that I did, just to know, hey, there's somebody else that sort of thinks the same thing, and they're not crazy. They're a lawyer. They're this. They're that. They're the gal they're the cashier at Walmart. Whatever. They're normal, and so are you. And so, so I said, all right, I will. So we all started it, and back in December, after a couple years, in fact, this is our anniversary week. Our 2-year anniversary was yesterday, and so
congratulations. That's
you.
actually a really good achievement, and it's not a small website or blog or anything. It's very big. We were talking about how it's gotten and that's a bittersweet thing, because it had, especially in the last several months, it really has grown. And then on one hand, that's fabulous. Our end goal was to do nothing if not support people. It's not a big money maker. It's not. At some point, would we be able to give back with resources and time? We'd love that. And who knows where things will happen. But if for no other reason, but somebody wakes up tomorrow and doesn't have any idea how they're going to take their next breath, they will at least have one resource that didn't exist when I lost my son, my first son. And they'll be able to say, hey, they do it. They do it. And the thing I think that's unique about Still Standing is that, unlike a lot of blogs, I remember after I lost Matthew, I thought I would come across some and there'd be fresh grief, and I'd be like, yeah, I'm on that board. I know what they're talking about. And then there would be people who were a couple years out or whatever, and I just thought, you can't possibly be living that life, because obviously you didn't love your child as much as I did, because I couldn't envision not ever being out of that pit. I mean, it's just, I just couldn't envision it. And so I think the thing that's unique about Still Standing is that we have a lot of both. We have people who are very fresh, very recent in their losses and their grief. They're going through infertility right now. They're on their 7th IVF or whatever. They wake up and they see something that's them. And then there are people like me who, it's been a couple of years for their first loss. I had a miscarriage a couple of years ago, and in fact, right when this magazine started. So ironically, I'd written about how
you can stand after you've gone through something. And it was 4 days after I had to have the D&C for my little boy. So it was kind of a bittersweet thing. But I think the thing that really helps us stand out is that we have all stages. And we have women and men, fathers too, especially, that have lost children or have gone through infertility at, adulthood. It's not, it started as infertility and pregnancy loss, and mainly pregnancy loss. And it's just growing because there are so many similarities, and especially I don't think people understand the similarities in loss and infertility. It's one thing if, it's a very tangible loss for people to see, like there's a funeral for a baby. A lot of people, that's what we had. People get it. I don't think they understand how much grief and mourning there is when the baby never is, and you have to cope with that, and you have to deal with that, and it's not as easy as why don't you just adopt, or why don't you stand on your head. There's a lot, just so many misconceptions. So I like that we're able to reach out, and every day we're getting bigger and bigger in the areas that we're reaching. So it's not just something that, oh, that's not me because my baby wasn't stillborn, or oh, that's not me, I didn't have a miscarriage.
Right.
So
I know that we had talked a little. We hadn't actually talked specifically, but we share a common friend, my sister. Do. Yes. And so that's how I was came on to your blog. I found it. And then wrote on our blog sort of a response to the miscarriage thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we started talking. Me personally, obviously being a man, if y'all couldn't tell, I don't know specifically the kind of difficulty one might go through. My wife actually, we went through 2 miscarriages. You don't prefer that word. What I wasn't sure. What was the term that you preferred?
I don't remember. And to be truthful, when you asked that question, I thought, because I thought about it. I don't know that it's so much the word miscarriage that I don't like, because in truth, what word is? What word is good enough? I typically don't say I had a miscarriage that often, but I do because that's what's known, and that's
right.
That's what's expected. I'll say I lost my son, and honestly, I don't love that because it's not like I lost him. He died. They died, and I again when you lose somebody, it's very sensitive because the people are very, very. It's a very personal thing to them, and it's very personal words. They will absolutely not use miscarriage. He died. They won't use lost because he didn't. It's weird, and I think my point in that article was more of what's attached to miscarriage.
Sure.
Because miscarriage, the word itself just seems so cold and clinical. And what word would I prefer? I don't know. I don't know what there is. I think I would prefer that miscarriage didn't just have that's common, it happens all the time.
Right. I know that when I first started writing that blog post, I was doing a little bit of research and had found out that miscarriage was actually the term that they changed it to. Originally, It was spontaneous abortion,
right.
Which was incredibly even more clinical. And there was actually articles written, I think, during the 70s that was pressuring doctors to stop using that terminology, especially with women who had just gone through one.
And yet, you'd be shocked at how often that's what it is. I got paperwork. It was a twin pregnancy, and I lost one at 7 weeks and didn't even, I hate to say it, I didn't even know. It was an IVF pregnancy,
right.
And so I didn't realize until 7 weeks when we lost it. But my other little boy, 14 weeks, that's significant. And we, just a week before, watched him suck his thumb. So to get papers from the insurance company that said I was a habitual aborter, not fun. Right. And especially because that was my first, Matthew dying was a neonatal death. And again, that's the thing about the death of a child, and especially during pregnancy loss. There's so many little, if it's between this time and this time, it's this, and this time and this time, it's this, and this time, and again, to the mother, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
To the father, it's a loss. And whether you, whether you feel like earlier on is not necessarily as traumatic as post, or what, those are personal beliefs, and I absolutely respect each individual's personal beliefs. It still doesn't make a difference. If you're a woman that is, posting on Facebook, I see 2 pink lines, it's a loss. And whatever those 2 pink lines stood for you at whatever gestation. And so, yeah, I got habitual aborter on one of my on one of the insurance papers, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Because I didn't know that it was a habit.
You could really get us started on like problems with the insurance companies and
Oh,
things.
well, yeah,
So-
I would be very happy to join in because I'm not. And that said, again, in fairness to them, what is a good term?
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
what is a good term? And so I think, if anything, I have learned that everything has to be just measured with a dose of grace. People, for the most part, do not intend to upset you, to hurt your feelings, I mean, even doctors, you're exactly right. I think it's interesting that you said that. You're exactly right. Things change. For instance, Mother's Day, I don't know how many people really, excuse me, knew this, but Mother's Day really originally started by a group of women who lost their sons in the Civil War. And
Wow, yeah.
it was bereaved. It was not a, hey, my mom's awesome. She's the Pinterest mom. Let's celebrate her. It was these women, which I am not the Pinterest mom. I am the Pinterest wannabe mom, and then I get frustrated and say, done with Pinterest. But it was really a group of women who had lost their sons to war, and they got together, and it has evolved. And so, but you don't know that today. You wouldn't know that because Hallmark. No offense to Hallmark, love Hallmark, but it's a holiday. It's a Hallmark holiday, a wonderful one. I expect a lovely gift, and I'm going to show this to my husband. No, I'm just kidding. But
So
but
now it's going to seem
do change.
now it's going to seem like I'm jumping on like, oh, I forgot about Mother's Day, but I meant to actually wish you a happy Mother's Day.
Okay, thank you.
Because
Thank
I
you.
knew that you were in fact. Yeah. So I was wondering in regards to for my wife, I talked with her at length when I was preparing for the blog that I was writing, because I wanted to be careful. I didn't want to seem insensitive, and so I wanted to get some of her perspective. One of the things that she shared with me is we lost 2. One of them was at 21 weeks, so pretty far along. And the other one was like a 5-week. I mean, it really, we hadn't even told anybody that we were pregnant again. And one
So can I ask you? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
So can I ask, just out of curiosity, then can I ask you, would you consider the one you lost at 21 weeks a miscarriage or a stillbirth? And if I'm too personal, I apologize.
No, I mean, I would probably call it a miscarriage. It was probably more like a stillbirth. I wasn't actually there. I was at work. But from what my wife told me, she basically, her body basically tried to give birth to it. And clinically,
and the reason I ask, because clinically, 20 weeks or older is just 20 weeks gestation or older is considered stillbirth. In fact, and I didn't know this either, only when my son died, and we are military. One of the insurance coverages that we have is specific to military members,
right.
And there's actually a rider on each military member if they have a specific insurance, and most do. There's a rider that if they lose a child 20 weeks gestation or later, they have an insurance policy, which is true. I mean, we were very blessed. We to bury our child, we were able to do that without having to worry about that, and we were able to donate that money for good things, for amazing things, and I'm grateful for that opportunity. But for many, many, many people, 20 weeks and on, it is birth. It's birth. Most women they have to deliver. It's not It's not what people think that it might be, and then you are looking at a funeral, and you're looking at it cost and things like that. And so, and I didn't mean to be nosy. I just figured
it's all right. I mean, I remember distinctly. It was at the end of my shift, and I don't think my wife would mind me sharing, but it was at the end of my shift at work, and so luckily there was another manager there at the time.
Right.
I work in retail, so I'm kind of stuck there.
Right.
But I remember her on the phone calling me My son must have been really young because he was 5 when our daughter was born. So he must have been 3 or 4. And I remember her saying, I think I've lost the baby.
Mm-hmm.
And me just grabbing my jacket, driving home, and the ambulance was there by the time I got there because I called the ambulance on my way home. And I remember we went to the hospital. She had a DNC. She ended up having to take medication for a little while to help reduce your uterus back down,
Mm-hmm.
contract it back down.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this week-long process as
Mm-hmm.
you're basically giving up
You're
the things that were keeping the child
Absolutely.
alive. And it was tough for her. And she's a very introverted person, so she doesn't always talk about those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, they're not easy to talk about.
no, and
And
especially
they're
not
not-
like a week after it happened. It's
Right,
like,
and
well,
that's-
let's get all this out, and you
And
can
that's
tell me
another
everything.
reason that things like Still Standing or any, there's so many organizations that share on grief. That's why they're so important, because they're available to women as they need them, when they need them. If they have no desire whatsoever to have anything to do with the real world, they don't have to. And a lot of women take. I did. I mean, I remember very clearly a family member telling me, you should really put the computer down because we're here and we lost him too. And I just kind of thought,
Yeah.
It's not about you, friend. It's not. It's about me. And there are, this is going to sound callous, and I hate to say it because I lost my mother to breast cancer, and my husband lost his father to colon cancer. We were no strangers to death, and to death of loved ones. But the reality is, when you are out my age, when you're in you expect that you could lose your parents. You expect that you could lose your spouse. You get married when you're an adult. You expect that they could be in a car accident or whatever. You certainly hope those are not realities, but you don't think like that'll never happen to me. And even with my husband, he's a pilot, and I have to say, I just thought, oh, absolutely, aircraft accidents happen, but that'll not happen to him. You expect you could lose sisters or brothers even to illness. It's just not in the natural order for our human minds, I don't think, to expect that you would lose your child. It just does to outlive your child, and because of how individual and unique that is, I do think that unless somebody sort of has and thank God, who wants to have the empathy of actually having that perspective? I would never wish that on the worst enemy, but sometimes, again, yes, family members and support, unbelievable resources, but sometimes, again, it's only those that kind of, been there, done that, for lack of a better term, really can understand and really can get it. So,
well, I have to say, I think that's what's sort of great about what you're doing is I feel like in general, when it comes to like women and pregnancy, people don't know what to say or how to say it. It's not even that they're trying to
Absolutely.
lack grace, but oftentimes people do. And I think what you're doing is great because it sort of tells people this is how you're supposed to speak about it, because people who have never been there oftentimes won't know.
Absolutely.
And
and
that's great.
Thank you. And the thing about that's interesting that you say, there really isn't anything that, it's, again, loss is so, I'm very different than my next door neighbor or my, across the street. Loss is one of those things that is just such an individual experience. And, theologies are different and belief systems are different. And even just compensation skills, like your emotional compensation. Some of us are stacked better than others. It's such a different experience for every single person. There's really no way of saying anything like you should or shouldn't. And again, that's why Still Standing is great, because you got lots of spectrums. You've got lots of different voices that said, this is what I needed, and this is what I needed, and this is what I needed. And you put them all together in a daily magazine, and you have a weekly roundup of these varied perspectives. You're going to hit somebody somewhere. And, I may not need the fluffy, theology, but somebody else may. I may not need the tough, suck it up, buttercup, somebody else that may be the way, like who knows? And so I think the fact that we can at least offer different options. And then I won't lie, there are some things that you just never say. You just never say. You just never say. And so, yeah, we do sort of tell people those. But for the most part, even those are, when well-intended. An article, actually, an upcoming article, is coming up about, even though you mean well, just so you know, it doesn't allow you to keep doing it. A lot of times we'll say, well, I'm not meaning this to come out the wrong way. And you just want to be like, then stop!
Yeah, exactly. Maybe it's time for you to stop talking for a little bit.
Right.
So now you had said you're in the middle of a move right now. And you move around a lot. Where are you from, though, like originally?
I was born in Arlington, Virginia. So I grew up in Northern Virginia for 24 years and never had any intentions of marrying anybody in the military. And nor did my husband ever have any intention of being in the military. But we met in college, Virginia Tech, woohoo, go Hokies. And we were both in grad school, and he got a flight contract to the Marine Corps. And I thought, well, what am I going to do now? Put 4 years into you. You're almost where I need you to be. So, just kidding. And so 17 years later, he's been in over 17 years, and it's been an adventure. And I think since losing Matthew, being a military spouse is tougher because typically, you have to sort of throw yourself into, like, I need to meet people whether I want to or not because I don't know anybody and I need to find a babysitter, or I need to, I need to know what pizza place to go to. And so one of the aspects of being a military spouse is just like, that really is sucking it up, buttercup, and doing it. You can whine about where you don't want to be, and I do. But the reality is, it is what you make of it, and you bloom where you're planted, or at least I do. And so, but I do. It's hard. You introduce yourself to, oh, is he your only one? Well, no. But who? I don't want to make somebody feel uncomfortable. Right. I'm never untruthful. I will never say yes, he is. I can't. I don't necessarily feel I'm doing any disrespect to the boys that I've lost, because my personal belief system is they don't even know. They don't know that. It's more the guilt that I have as a mother. Right. And I don't want to go to sleep at night going, why did I have to? I don't have anything to be ashamed of. I don't have anything to be uncomfortable about. Just as they were not trying to be insensitive and asking me a very benign question, is he your only one?
Right.
Who doesn't? That's very benign. I'm not trying to be insensitive back by saying, no, he's not. And typically I'll leave it at that. Some people are pushy. Oh, where are your others? Well, they died. Oh, I don't know how, at what point my tongue just kind of is like, you should just stop asking questions now, because I don't know how else to be nice to you. But so as a military spouse, that's difficult. And we're actually about to move to someplace I've never been. We're going to West Palm Beach, Florida. I know, tough life.
Hopefully you can send some of the weather back up here to Chicago, because
no. Well, we were supposed to go back to Maryland. We actually in Southern Maryland. That's where we'll probably end up retiring in a couple of years. That's where we thought we were going to be stationed this summer. And after seeing the winter y'all have had, oh no. I will take I'll take Florida for a couple of years, any day of the week, and twice on Sunday. Thanks. You keep that snow.
Yeah, no, it's been awful, and this spring hasn't even really been here, and our summer is right around the corner, and luckily, I think we got some 80-degry weather coming up. But
yeah,
I was going to say, I won't tell you it's been 85 and sunny all week, then, will I? No, I'll just keep that to myself.
So does still standing now, because you're actually talking, I'm an atheist, Sequoia is an atheist, James, you identify yourself as spiritual. So but does still standing have like any sort of a religious sort of or particular theology? That I know it's basically a lot of different blogs, and so there's probably a huge spectrum. But
it is, well, it's one magazine, so but mostly the writers have their own individual blogs, which they do on their own, and then they have a monthly article that they do for Still Standing. And honestly, when you sent me the list of questions, honestly, they're really there really isn't. I personally, I'm a Protestant. Several of us are, or at least would consider themselves Christian, but we have a Buddhist. We have several atheists. We have a variety of belief systems or lack of belief systems. I don't know how to tactly say that, but not that you have a lack of belief system, but just we have a couple of atheists. We do. I have over 20 some odd writers, and we are from all ends of this world, the overseas, here, and I think it's important because regardless of what your personal beliefs are, the reality is, and again, if someone were to come to me personally and ask me personally about my thoughts, my feelings, my beliefs, absolutely, I'm happy to share. I'm honored to share. I'm privileged to share. But I also know that the gal that doesn't believe that God exists is still hurting. And the other one who is wondering because she's grown up this way her whole life and all of a sudden is questioning, she's still hurting. And then it doesn't really make a difference. The grief doesn't know religion. Right. Grief doesn't know theology. Grief doesn't know anything. Grief just knows no skin color, no gender, no anything. When Matthew died, there's a humongous church filled with Marines sobbing, and Marines don't sob. Baloney. They do, because grief doesn't know any of that, and it doesn't discriminate against that. And so, while there certainly are magazines that are faith-based, and specifically faith-based, and I read a lot of those. Obviously on a personal level, I personally choose things that I agree with.
Like most people, that's okay.
Well, yeah, right? That's my personal thing. But I do feel that it is extremely, at least in this situation, when people are dealing with infertility or with the loss of children, I think that there's just a disservice done if they're not, whatever the belief system is not treated as valid and not treated as part of how they're grieving. I would get nothing. In fact, how much I would get nothing, no offense, but I would get nothing going to a counselor or a therapist who was completely opposite of my faith system. How would I, here I am saying, my child died. Where is he? Is he in heaven? Nope, there isn't one. Okay, that's not going to work for me. However, on the same
honestly,
token,
that would probably be a pretty terrible therapist too.
Well, but you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. However, that said, if that was my belief system, right, and I couldn't find a therapist that said, "Oh no, honey, there is heaven. Let me tell you about him." While on a personal, like me personally, I could be great, but what kind of therapist would that be for that person?
Right.
They would not be. They'd be a terrible therapist as well.
Exactly.
And so, if nothing else, at the end of the day, Still Standing can share lots of variety and lots of beliefs, so that we all, who are, we're the one thing we can all agree on is we hurt. Our hearts are hurting, and we're trying to figure out how to not necessarily stop it, but how to live with it. And not only how to live with it, but how to live joyfully with it. The mission for Still Standing really was not just to be an area where people can go and wallow. No, I don't want to use the word wallow, because wallowing is completely okay if wallowing is what you feel like you need to do. But it was not meant to be a site where it's just everyday soul-crushing grief stories that you read. For most of the people, most of the demographics of Still Standing, most of the readers, that's their everyday life. They don't need to seek it out. It is their life. And so while they need to be able to relate, Still Standing was also to show, hey, you can survive. And not only can you survive, you can thrive. You can embrace life, and you can still live a very different life than you ever expected it to be, right, but still an amazing, amazing life. And again, to be able to show the perspective of how devastation in that moment to what could be, and how different people experience. That's sort of what we were going for.
Yeah, I mean, I've skimmed some of the blogs, and I would say primarily it's a site that's dedicated more towards hope than anything else.
We try.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good site to spend time on, especially if you're kind of struggling with something like that, or you have questions, even like maybe somebody who you have is in your life that is going through something like that, and you want to kind of get that kind of a perspective.
Absolutely.
So what is some of the ways that, I mean, there's not a huge listenership or anything, but if people happen to come across, what are some ways that you'd like them to help you?
You know, honestly and truly, I think the best thing that anybody can do to help is to just remember that, you know, listening is supposed to be to listen, not to reply. I saw a quote that went around, you know, are you really listening to listen, or are you listening to reply? And I think for most people, we listen to reply, and especially in a situation where someone is staring at you crying, because you want to fix it and you want to make it better. And so you want to reply with whatever there is that is going to fix it. And the reality is there's just nothing that's really going to fix it. And so listening to listen, and you know, when people ask what can we do, listen. You know, listen to what the person is what they need, what they 9 times out of 10, the offers of call me if you need anything or tell me what I can do fall on deaf ears, because frankly, people don't know. Even years later, you know, my son's birthday this past year was on Thanksgiving Day. And so talk about, you know, like here's the whole, all we are on Facebook or posting pictures of how we're being thankful, and which I absolutely was, and am. But it was kind of a bittersweet thing because he would have been 4. And so there are several people who said, what can I do? Years later, people will do that. And again, even in the asking, that's so much more than a lot of people get. I think the biggest thing that we ask of people is support the people in your lives that need the support. And if they're running for March of Dimes, throw them $5. Don't spend it at Spar, you know, don't waste it on not that Starbucks is not worth it, but you know, that month, if you see one of your friends and they're running for March of Dimes, or they're asking you to donate to Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep, $5 here, $5 there to those organizations, they get a card that says this was done in your son or daughter's name. Priceless. So I think the biggest thing is not to underestimate the little things that can be done, but just the little everyday things.
James, do you have any questions? I know you're not feeling very well.
Not
I
really.
know.
I'm
Bless
very
your
interested.
heart.
You know, it's interesting to hear all of this. I don't know. I was thinking earlier, was there anyone else that's part of the magazine that you wanted to mention while you're on here? You know, I know there's probably a lot. You said you have like 20 different people blogging.
We do more. I'm sad, but we have several. And if I don't name them all, you're about to get me in a lot of trouble because
My fault. I put on the
because
spot.
we do. I know. Thanks. And I was blessing your heart for being sick. I'm taking that back. I'm just kidding. We do. And in fact, we have probably, there's several bigger, far bigger than anything that we do conglomerately. There are some, and I hate to use the big names or whatever for blogging or whatever, but for online we have Tova Gold, who she's got a Finding My Muchness movement, and we have Angela Miller. We have several authors, new books coming out. Angela Miller does A Bed for My Heart, and Katie Larson does Somewhere Over the Rainbow. She's actually compiled the book. I sent you the link earlier. It's a book that's come out. It's called Because They Lived, Still Standing. And it's basically the contributor stories and our why because they lived what. So for instance, mine was because they lived, I became a mother. Several were because they lived, this organization was founded, or this happened. And so all of the proceeds for the book are going to be used for the contributors' charities. And the neat thing about that is that the charities they're not just specific to infertility or child loss. They all somehow relate to that. But for instance, we were adopting international from Kyrgyzstan. Kyrgyzstan closed 2 weeks before we were supposed to go over, and still hasn't reopened. And it's been a very, very long 6 years watching children that have homes waiting for them languish in these orphanages. And so that's where I'd put mine. Now I lay me down to sleep, I'd put mine. There's organizations, it's a rescue. Mandy will hate me for not remembering this, but it's a rescue organization for pit bulls, because she, after she had a couple of miscarriages, she adopted Bella, and Bella has been tremendous in her healing, tremendous in her being able to embrace that life. And so just different organizations that you wouldn't look at and go, oh, that's not like a baby loss kind of organization. No, not necessarily, but we're not, the big thing is to understand that the grief doesn't have to define who you are. And there are organizations that are near and dear to your heart that have helped in your healing that may be, because it is an individual thing. It's not going to all be to one specific organization or other. So anyway, that book is coming out, and hopefully we'll be able to do some amazing things for some amazing organizations with that.
Yeah, she sent me the link. The link will be, for those who are watching the vidcast, the link will be in the underbar, so please go check it out. If you are on...
I know,
if you are listening to it, please, you could go to the vidcast to get it from there. I'll also make sure that the link is in the info for the link on the Libsyn page, which I think you can see that on iTunes. I'm not sure.
Me either.
It's all technical, so I push buttons and make it happen. But
I push buttons and then I get mad at the computer because nothing happens. So at least you're ahead of me there.
Yeah, sometimes it happens. Well, I think it's probably a pretty good spot to sort of wrap up. I want to thank you, Lori, very much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All of the things that you're doing to help tell people about us. I want to be able to do just as much to let the people that we interact with know about you. So thank you very much. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing your story. It's a wonderful story. Please, any of our listeners, go check out her the website, stillstandingmag.com. Link will be in the underbar and all that such. Yeah. You all had anything else you wanted to wrap up with, or?
You sent me that long list of questions. I spent all afternoon.
You hit a lot of them. I don't think we need to go into too many more of them. So, so it's all good. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll for our listeners, we will see you all next week for our science and tech. So, Lori, have a great day. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.